Our today's guest is Dr. Adil Rasheed. Dr. Adil Rasheed is research fellow at the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analyses in New Delhi, India. Dr. Rasheed has interviewed many distinguished international leaders, such as former U.S. Secretary of State Leon Panetta, former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamed, former NATO chief, and many others. Dr. Rasheed is respected as a research scholar who has been studying and researching on the threats posed by the uh, jihadist and religious extremist group in South Asia. Dr. Rasheed, welcome to this interview.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, I would like to ask you that we know that you have done a lot of research on your own on the Taliban in Afghanistan. And as we know that Taliban's are gradually expanding its influence in Afghanistan and outside Afghanistan. In your opinion, do you think such expansions may open the prospect for jihadist groups in expanding their activities within South Asia?
Yes, there is always this danger that Taliban coming to power is a very disturbing phenomenon. And we have even seen that Pakistan, which was using the Taliban as an organization to gain strategic depth to Afghanistan, that has backfired for it to an extent that the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is getting support from the Taliban against the Pakistani state. So even Pakistan is struggling with the coming of the Taliban into power in Afghanistan. And Chinese foreign minister also has visited Afghanistan, and there are Central Asian countries holding meetings. They are fully aware of the threat of religious fundamentalism growing because of the coming of Taliban in Central Asia. So yes, the threat is out there. We can only hope that the Taliban, which has given assurances to the international community in the Doha agreements, that although it has not, the record is not very clear, but we can only hope that it would make amends to what its modus operandi was earlier, and it would start behaving in a responsible way and in order to become part of the international system, which it says it wants to be part of wants to gain recognition of other countries. For that, it will have to demonstrate its willingness to support peace and stability in the region.
And in this case, what countries like Bangladesh, India, and others can do in not letting the Taliban-backed jihadist group infiltrate within our South Asian region? I mean, particularly India and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka.
Yes, I think we have been friends of Afghanistan and Afghanistan people. The other SAARC countries, Bangladesh, India, we have been trying to have good relations with Afghanistan before the coming of Taliban. And there were many projects with high investment projects of development, which India initiated for the people of Afghanistan. And so we would like that for the people of Afghanistan, India would like to be a force for good, but it will all depend on the way the Taliban regime behaves. And there is also, we understand that the Taliban follows the Devbandi school, but they take a very hardline approach when it comes to their version of Devbandi Hanafi Islam, which is quite different from the Darul Uloom Devband of India, which is a very pacifist group. And so we hope that Taliban understands that a militant way of life can never bring peace and security to themselves or to their country or even to the Pakhtun ethnicity, which they believe is their main constituency. So if they want to reverse the 40, 50 years of destructive past in Afghanistan and want to reconstitute Afghanistan, and as the new regime there, they want Afghanistan to come back to peace, prosperity, and development, then they will have to behave more responsibly. And perhaps India and other countries, if they demonstrate such things, are always there to help them.
But we have been seeing for the decades, actually, as far as the case of Afghanistan is concerned. Afghanistan is time and again falling into the traps of religious bigots. I mean, it's not that the recent cases of Taliban. I mean, it has been always happening that democracy could not actually find any foothold in Afghanistan, and it has been always being submerged by how to say, by bad elements that I mean, for recently now it has now it is happening in Afghanistan, where we think that Taliban are, as you just mentioned, that refusing the girls and women from their education and from their rights. And similar things is also we are witnessing in Iran, what is happening with the case of hijab, etc. So, but I mean, Muslim countries, so Bangladesh is a Muslim country. India has a vast segment of Muslims. So, if someone says that Islam is Taliban or Islam is what we are seeing in Iran, I personally may not agree, but I hope you don't also agree that Islam is not what we see in Afghanistan or Iran. But I mean, in some to some certain extent, actually, let me say, in a greater extent, the happenings in Afghanistan and Iran is causing damage to the image of Islam. What is your opinion?
I completely agree with you, and I would say that the Taliban's actions should not be judged as Islamic actions. Uh, Even when they follow the Hanafi code, the Hanafi fiqh of Sunni Islam, they are not fully following it. If they are not giving their women part of the property which is written in the Quran, they generally eat up it's a very patriarchal society. They do not even give in the Sharia a woman's inheritance. So what kind of Islam is that? If they are not given meher, the dowry to girls, then what kind of Islam is that? And if you look at even the Salafi jihadists, they, in some respects, although they are very vicious when they come to the treatment of women, still their treatment of women is better than the Taliban's treatment of women. You can find certain female militants in jihadist, Salafi jihadist groups, but you find the women in Afghanistan being completely condemned to the periphery. So they are not following even the Hanafi or Sunni version of Islam entirely. They are also allowing the trade in drugs and all that, which is all forbidden in Islam. So to conflate Islam with Taliban's conduct is completely wrong. And Islam and Muslims should not be conflated. Islam is a religion, but the followers are not always reflecting the faith. And here I would also like to say one very important fact, that there is also some bright elements here. You see that the Taliban is open to negotiation, uh, unlike Al Qaeda or ISIS, which never negotiates with their adversaries or any non-Muslims. The Taliban showed willingness to negotiate with even America during the Doha negotiations, and has always expressed the wish to be part of the international community. Now, there is some deviousness in the way it pursues that, but the fact comes from its understanding of the Devbandi Islam, which says that the Prophet's way of Sulh Hudaybiyah, of making peace gestures and not going to war and being open to negotiation. So here you find that the Taliban behaves differently from ISIS or Al Qaeda. It also gives importance to nationality. It says that it wants to safeguard the rights of the Pakhtun people and for Afghanistan, whereas the ISIS talks about jihad fi sabilillah. It does not give importance to nationality. It is a global jihadist organization. So we find that there are differences even in these organizations, and we should understand them, and we should try to bring moderation in when you become a national actor, a government force. Then you have to be moderate, and I think that we can only hope that with time, Taliban understands some of the mistakes which it has been making, and that for the development of Afghanistan, and it also tries to understand the principles of its very religious ideology, which is a very moderate ideology. Unfortunately, because of superpower rivalries, other actors coming into the region, this people of Afghanistan, even the faith of the people has been radicalized by foreign elements. And we hope that the Asian culture, the South Asian culture of moderation, which Bangladesh practices, which India practices, they will also imbibe it. The Ashari school, which they follow, talks about not judging anybody. They are called Murjia because they postpone judgment. Only on the day of judgment, God will decide who is a good person, who's not a good person. That has been part of the Hanafi ideology. And so we hope that they will also not be judgmental in judging anybody on the basis of religion or race or anything. So this is all willful thinking. We will always be optimistic about it.
So one very important issue that I want to bring forward. I mean, many scholars in the world, in the Western world, they say that Quran does not give any right to women. Is number one, and number two, if you are considering the Quranic verses, for example, the Tawbah, Surah Tawbah, so it clearly instructs the Muslims to go for killing non-Muslims. I mean, it is encouraging jihad. So Quran is encouraging jihad, and Quran is renouncing the rights of women. That is what the scholars say, and actually we also see the things in Quran. But what would be your explanation on this matter?
Okay, these are very big questions. These are questions which will take time to answer. I do not know if you can indulge me a little, if I can take 5-10 minutes or so in explaining these questions, because I will have to explain about Surah Tawbah, and I will have to explain about women's rights. And
in that case, maybe
so
we can come back to this.
You can edit it later, perhaps.
We can come to this matter later on in a second interview. But one very important question that I want to ask you now, that you have been doing a lot of research on Arab Spring. You have written extensively on Arab Spring, and 13 years have passed since the Arab Spring. And as an analyst, what do you see? I mean, what are the impacts of Arab Spring? Now, I would like to say here something that we have seen in Tunisia, for example, the result of Arab Spring, or Egypt. I mean, the results were not good. So, what is your opinion, personal opinion, that what is the latest situation or latest status of the Arab Spring, and where does it stand?
I'm sorry, but if you would kindly allow me, I will give a very shortish answer of the earlier question. At least we should deal with it to some extent. I think Islam is perhaps the first religion in the world which gave women the right to property, and also the first religion in the world which made it a duty on both Muslim man and woman to be educated. And it is also a religion which first mentions women also going to paradise, explicitly mentioning women as eligible to go to paradise. And we find that so this is a major development which Islam, and if you study Surah Nisa, you will be surprised to find that Islam even talks about the fact that a man cannot do justice to more than one wife. So that is in fact a recommendation for monogamy. Polygamy was prevalent in Arabia at that time, and Islam is only limiting it to 4. So it is more of a restriction. But if you look at Surah Nisa's verses, you will find that it is talking about that there should be justice among all the 4. And the Quran then also says that you will not be able to do justice to, even if you have 4 wives. It is better to do. So I think our theologians need to look at this issue more in a more subtle manner. And what we, again, when it comes to jihad is not a crusade or not a religious war. Jihad is a striving. It is not. It can be non-violent. It is actually basically a non-violent striving. It comes from jihad, which means struggle. It doesn't mean war with non-believers. Even Surah Tawbah is against against the people who violated the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah, and particularly the who killed the non-Muslim members of the Banu Khuza tribe in the Kaaba. And it was the non-Muslim tribe which was allied to Medina, which actually went to the Prophet and said that they should come to, that the Prophet should enter Makkah with his forces because the treaty, 10-year peace treaty, has been violated. But the Prophet then allowed Makkah to give monetary compensation for the killings which was done by the tribe of Banu Bakr. So when you read the 5th ayah of Surah Al-Tawbah, you are only and that surah itself says this ayat is only for those tribes who have violated the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. So it is not actually applicable to any other tribe. It is the extremist Salafi jihadists who say that these conditions are now mansukh, that they are not going to accept these. So they are violating. They are doing what they do say bidah. They are not following the real meaning of the verses of the Quran, which are then actually clarified in the same verse and the verse before and after them. So it's a very selective distortion and a very selective way of looking at those verses. I would also like to say here, when it comes to the Arab Spring, that the Arab Spring is a development which was, I would say it was an unfortunate development. Perhaps the polities of various Arab states should have been able to avoid it, so that this disruption, civil insurgency, should not have taken place across so many countries. And we can only hope that there should be stability in the Arab world, and at the same time there should be political reform. So both of these processes should continue, but in a very peaceful, uniform way. And whenever there are changes in society or in politics, there comes of the Arab Spring, and that even many big states have tried to internally reform themselves. Now, this process will be a little chaotic sometimes. It may work in Tunisia, it may not work there in Tunisia. It may take maybe decades before which the process becomes completely harmonized. But the process started. There is greater involvement of the people in the governance of the countries, and there is now also threat of states crumbling because of internal disturbances. So we have to see this in a very careful manner, that there should not be chaos, and at the same time there should be political reforms and this.
Uh, Dr. Rashid, uh, you are researching, you are doing a lot of research on counterterrorism, and we are also doing the same thing on our part. So, of course, the South Asia has a risk posed by terrorism and militancy. And in this case, your role and our role in researching the threats posed by militancy and terrorism, in your opinion, how much important is this kind of activities, the research that you and I and we are doing?
I think yes, we need to join hands. We have great scholarship in South Asia itself. Uh, Scholars from Bangladesh, scholars from India, and other countries. There are 4 countries in South Asia which are predominant the Muslim countries, and then there is India, which has such a huge Muslim population. Now, if there is a problem of militancy within our community, we should accept it. We should not be in a state of denial. We should not say that no, we don't have a problem. There is also a tendency, as it happens with every other community, that we try to negate that there is a problem. We always sometimes blame foreign powers or other communities for our problems, which may not be always true. There is a problem within the community itself, so we should not be completely in denial about it. And we should also remember that most of this extremism and terrorism has affected Muslim countries and Muslim populations more than the other non-Muslims. More Muslims have died because of terrorism and violent extremism. And so we need to, if we will study Islam in its purity, we will find that Islam itself is the answer to solving extremism. And these people are fasadis. They should not be called jihadis. They have been there from the very beginning. By calling them jihadis, we are giving them legitimacy because they are not following any of the rules of even militant jihad. No, only a head of state, only the Amirul Mu'mineen or Amir can declare uh, uh, a militant jihad when all diplomatic and political options have been exhausted. No mullah, no mufti, no bin Laden, a non-state actor, can ever declare jihad. This is very clearly stated in all the Sunni schools of fiqh, of jurisprudence. And there is no allowance for killing women, children, ghair muharrib, uh, elderly people, or even monks of other communities, or the cattle, or the animals, or the environment. You please, if people are following the first caliph, Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, they would know he gave injunctions. The Prophet himself gave injunctions about not killing women, children, elderly, and civilian people. And it was in Islam only conventional war is allowed. Non-conventional, sub-conventional, guerrilla warfare. This is all the Khariji work which came much later, and this was not allowed. So, and even the non-Muslim adversaries were following these rules. So we should accept. The Prophet has accepted helpful fudul. It was a system in which non-Muslim treaties of peace were continued in Islam. The Prophet was, when he was 20 years old, he became part of a treaty in Makkah, which was calling for peace between the tribes of Arabia. And when he became prophet after the age of 40, he said he still is in support of that treaty. So this gives us the reason why we should support the UN. Even non-Muslim peace organizations and institutions should be supported because of the Hilful Fudul precedent.
Dr. Adil Rasheed, actually, we have reached to the last segment of this interview. And thank you very much for joining us. And yes, we agree that individuals like you who are doing a lot of research on the threats posed by militancy and what exactly also we are doing. And there should be more and more interactions amongst ourselves, those who are doing the research and in the very near future, we would like to come back to you with more episodes of the interview. And on behalf of BLiTZ, I would like to express my gratitude to you for kindly granting us the time. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a great honor for me. Thank you.